This week, you get a chance to read about President Eisenhower's strategy in containing the threat of communist Russia during the Cold War. But one of the important things to keep in mind is that his actions, to a large extent, were a reflection of many decisions that had been taken by President Truman before him. And since on February 7th, the State of the Union address was given by President Biden, I wanted you to reflect on the first televised State of the Union address, which was actually given in 1947 by Harry S. Truman. It was an address that focused on both domestic and foreign policy concerns. You can take a look at the address through the link provided on the image of the video that you will see reflected on the page content, as well as the transcript for the address. One of the things that you will find is that many of the things that you have been reading about, the importance of domestic policy in shaping foreign policy, are present there from the very beginning. And more importantly, you'll see that many of the priorities that Truman actually addresses in that State of the Union are comparable to the strategies that the Eisenhower administration will take. So take a look at that. And one of the other things that I wanted you to consider was President Biden's speech given this year. The reason for that, of course, is that it is an interesting contrast to what was President Truman's focus. What you're going to find is that many of the key words that are used in one speech are actually found in the other. So it's an important exercise in thinking about how, in spite of major conflicts such as the Cold War, some things remain very similar in the way in which presidents give news about the state of the country. A little bit of background about the State of the Union address. There is a constitutional duty for the president to actually give a report to the joint session of Congress. You can actually find that in Article 2, Section 3. And the tradition, of course, began with Presidents George Washington and John Adams, both of which actually delivered messages which were then published in newspapers all around the country. In 1801, Thomas Jefferson actually decided to write his particular report rather than deliver the address. And it is really not going to be until the 20th century that a sitting president will deliver an address to Congress. And that is actually going to be done by Woodrow Wilson in 1913. So that gives you a little bit of background. The Truman address, of course, is the first televised one. The first one to actually be given live was actually by President Lyndon Johnson, who, of course, we will be discussing and taking a look at later on in the semester. So I invite you to take a look at that first televised State of the Union address and compare it to the current State of the Union address. I think it gives some interesting insights into the importance of thinking about change over time as well as continuity in the domestic and foreign policy of the country.